Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about understanding why we rotate training stress and why training stimulus and training stress and rotating it is one of the keys to getting truly strong in the long term. And examples you're going to see just through this video, you're going to see max work, you're going to see speed work, you're going to see repetition work on box squats in good mornings, using a variety of bars, bands, chains, things like that. And people would say, well, I don't understand. How does this carry over? Well, watch this box squat, for example, with the buffalo bar. So again, why the buffalo bar? It's easier on your shoulders. Almost everyone out there has the same bar path and can lift the same weight on a buffalo bar as a squat bar. So there's minimal differences. And then watch what happens. I mean, even if you look at this and say, would this carry over to a back squat? Well, yeah, of course it would. Right? Control, standing back up. Right? If you could do that, what I just did there, you can probably back squat that same amount of weight, if not more, without practicing the movement. Okay? It makes you stronger. Makes you stronger at squatting. So we come over and we look at all these different movements, and people would say, so why max on these different movements? It teaches you how to ramp up against awkward, uncertain loads. And if you can get strong at multiple angles. In this case, you guys have watched me do a buffalo bar, right? A cambered squat bar, which pulls you backwards, right? It pulls you backwards more. So you have to fight against that. And you guys watch me max with it there with 535. It's harder than a normal bar because it pulls you backwards, just like the safety squat bar pulls you forward. It pitches you a different way. So if you actually get good at maxing at both, you're still getting the same amount of leg involvement and everything else. You're still driving maximally with the legs. It's that your center of gravity has changed and you're having to fight against it in different directions. But you've still maximally recruited all the muscles of the lower body, right, on a 1 rep max. You've trained the intramuscular coordination there, but what you've done is that you've learned to brace and fight against the weight and still lock an extremely heavy weight, a maximal weight, irrespective of which direction it pulls you. Now, when we talk about that with max work, people will also say, well, isn't it dangerous to do that? No, it's the opposite. And there's data on it, and I've even saw Dr. Jordan Feigenbaum kind of break that down before too, that actually getting really strong at these different variations seems to lower injury rates because we get less overuse. And you guys see me doing a good morning there. And again, the good morning carries over. And that was a max good morning, so that didn't look particularly pretty, and I'm not used to using that bar. But we come in and we strain maximally against these weights. And the same thing when I'm doing other good mornings with really high reps for a lot of work. You know, people would look at that and say, well, why? How's that carry over to a squat? It is a squat. A squat and a good morning are the same exercise. The only difference is the amount of knee bend. Now, that means that things like the upper back and the spine get more work on it than a squat, right? I mean, like right there, 275 for 20 with that. You know, there's more back involvement, more posterior chain involvement, but the pattern itself is a squat. It'll look exactly like a squat, you're just not bending the knees as much, which means less quad. So every single muscle in the body that's used on the squat has been worked. All the joint angles have been worked. Look at the hip extension. That's the same hip extension on a squat. So it works everything involved in the squat effectively to a larger degree than on the squat other than the quads. But it's easier to recover from than a squat. You could always do extra quad work. Quads become a weak link on squatting. The good morning teaches you to squat. But look at the different training stimulus. You guys are seeing me do different bars, different rep ranges, sometimes even chains on the good morning. We're always rotating training stress. Okay, and that way we get good at everything. You know, instead of this idea that, oh, well, 1 rep range, well, why would you ever do just 1 rep range? What's the overwhelming amount of scientific data show that actually people gain muscle quicker, potentially, if they do multiple rep ranges and they train multiple movement patterns? Well, isn't that the name of the game? Aren't we trying to maximize muscle growth in all the muscles involved in a lift? Yes. And we're trying to maximize speed, which is why you guys see me doing speed squats there. Speed squats against bands or chains. Also rotating bars. Why? Speed work. It teaches us to explode, be more powerful. It also causes hypertrophy. Right? So if we're using 3 different major training modalities, in this case max work, speed work, which again hypertrophic in nature also, and we're doing a bunch of high rep work for all the supplemental muscles and even sometimes close movement patterns like the good morning, and keeping in mind good morning's improved squats is direct carryover. And if you understand the good morning and you understand the squat, it makes sense. Okay. So we're maximizing hypertrophy in all the muscles. You are training maximum force production for both maximum weight and then maximum force production for speed repeatedly. Always changing exercises so that we get a lower rates of overuse injuries. Well, what does that mean? Well, that means number one, you can max out more often without getting risk of injury. Okay, right off the bat. Number two, if we are reducing overuse, we can handle more training. Okay, what is it that knocks you out of training when we train too hard? It's not overtraining. Look, if you're experiencing overtraining symptoms, you're out of shape, you're not eating enough, you're not sleeping enough, there's other stuff happening. And your programming is probably bad. We're concerned with inflammation, overuse, tendon problems, things like that. Well, that gets alleviated by continually rotating training stress. Switching bars, switching to chains, adding chains, removing chains, switching to bands. Okay. This removes overuse injuries to a very large degree. In addition to the fact that we are never acclimating. And I'm not saying the muscle confusion principle by bodybuilders is technically correct, but some of it's geared in the right direction. As long as we are creating enough fatigue and overload, hypertrophy is going to occur. Okay? Doesn't matter if we rotate stimulus to reach it. As long as the fatigue itself and the workloads continue to go up, you will continue to see muscle growth. But in this case, we're not acclimating. Because we're always rotating stuff, we have a better chance for a larger novel training response. Okay, we make continual progress. We also, not just do we make the continual physical progress in that regard, we get really good at being strong at a lot of different angles, have less overuse, lower injury rates. It also keeps you psychologically fresh. And that's a big part of it. And we could argue all that we want about some of these linear block programs with exercise minimalism and just running linear periodization with pretty heavy volumes with the big movements. The problem is psychological. They work in the right environment, right? When you're in a communist country and your family's life depends upon you getting strong, by God, you will stick out that sort of program. But then you also don't have other things to worry about, right? When you have a dull life because you live in an Eastern Bloc communist country or in China or whatever, your life is boring anyways, and then your training just becomes your job at that point, and in many cases, your life depends on it. The life of your loved ones could depend on it. You'll stick through and push that stuff out, right? And it's your job. It's your grueling job. Doesn't work as well when this is a hobby for us. It's something that we do voluntarily. And it may be for a lot of us, our income may depend on it. With me as a strength coach and a YouTuber, it does to a very large extent. But it's voluntary. This keeps us psychologically fresh, in addition to all the other benefits. So my point here is that we have the lack of specificity, because in these cases we are getting so all around strong at everything, at every angle, that we just get brutally strong. In this case, it's no longer about, am I just getting good at the squat, the bench, the deadlift, whatever you happen to compete in. It's a case of saying, am I just getting strong top to bottom? Okay, because there's a big difference between them, and this will help you get there. This will help you get there. We're rotating movement patterns, bars, the way the weight's pulling us, rotating the exact training stimulus in terms of the speed, the tension, the workload. So it's not just the movements that change, right? And this works. It works very, very well. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.